Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for our first webinar of the 2026 season. Today, we're taking a look at messaging and cross-team coordination within the Roomkey PMS platform. So the outline for today's presentation will start with some introductions, then we'll take a look at our messaging toolkit, all the tools that are available in Roomkey that allow us to support messaging across departments and between team members there. Then we're going to look at real-life scenarios from the front desk handoffs, housekeeping updates, sales and group billing, accounting coordination, and then we're going to wrap it up with a summary and Q&A. So our introductions for today, my name is Tasha LeClaire. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with Roomkey. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tam. I'll be leading today's presentation and the demonstrations on screen, and William will oversee the chat and Q&A. Everyone joining today's live presentation is on mute, but if you have questions at any time throughout the presentation, go ahead and put those into the Q&A. William will be able to answer, and if there's any questions left over, we're going to go ahead and add those to our Q&A at the end. A couple more things about today's webinar. It is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be made available on our support website. Everyone registered for our webinar will receive a notification once that recording is available, so you can review it or share it with other team members. Lastly, for those of you that are joining today's live presentation, there is a webinar survey at the end. So if you can take a couple of minutes, it's just 3 quick questions about our webinar presentation today. And if you have any suggestions for future webinar topics, you can add that as part of the survey as well. So diving right in, let's take a look at our messaging toolkit. The 3 main or broad categories of tools that we'll be looking at today are the Notes, Message Center, and Guest Services. Now, the largest category is Notes, so we're going to talk about that one first. We've got a variety of different types of notes, starting with our most basic type of note, which is a guest or reservation notes. These guest and reservation notes can be added at the time of booking, and they're attached directly to a reservation or a guest profile. And they'll appear in the lower half of the screen when you are interacting with that reservation. So they'll appear down here in the bottom right corner. Now, the main difference between these types of notes is that a reservation note is attached to this one-time reservation, and a guest note, instead of being attached to the reservation, is actually attached to the guest profile. So each time that guest returns to your property, that guest note is going to follow along with them and automatically populate onto each subsequent reservation automatically. Now, a subset of those guest notes is what we call a guest status, and our most popular guest status here is the VIP status. This is a type of status that you can enable on a guest profile, so it will follow the guest through each subsequent stay, each time they return to your property. And the unique feature about these VIP guest status is that when you have a VIP guest arriving with a reservation, you'll see their reservation appears highlighted in green on your screen in Roomkey. Another type of guest status is the DNR or do not rent status. These are important for any guests that cause issues or maybe damage to the property and you do not want to welcome them back. The most important thing about these do not rent guest status is that the guest profile will appear highlighted in red. And if you try to make a reservation, you'll actually get this warning message here telling you that you are unable to rent to this guest when they're in DNR status. Another type of note that we'll be looking at today are the attached notes feature, which is unique to the corporate accounts and groups modules inside Roomkey. This is a helpful way to add booking and billing instructions for a corporate account or a group account. This ensures that when a reservation is made for that, using that corporate account or using that group block, that those notes automatically pull through onto the reservation. So that can be very key anytime you have prepaid billing or if you have any direct billing or any sort of special booking or billing instructions using the attached note. Next one we'll look at are guest room notes. Now, these are unique because they're not attached to a profile or a reservation. Instead, these are notes that are attached directly to a room number, and they stay attached day over day until they are removed, regardless if there is a guest checked in or if the room is vacant. Those notes will appear on that printed report as long as they're attached there. The last type of note category are reference notes, and these are specific to group blocks or city ledger accounts and invoices. These are secure internal notes that are used for reference with regards to a group block, or it could be in regards to a city ledger account or a specific invoice. And in today's presentation, we'll see how we can review or edit or update these notes as well. Ooh, so that's a lot. The next type of tool that in our toolkit is the message center. We have a built-in message center inside Roomkey that allows you to set alerts or flags and send messages between users. So if you've ever logged into Roomkey and you've seen this icon pop up in the top right-hand corner that tells you have an unread message, that's coming from the message center. So we can send these messages between users. You can set reminders or set deadlines or due dates for these messages. The great feature that I like to highlight about the Message Center is that you've got that customization ability to select specific recipients. You can decide exactly who receives your message. You can also track that information. We'll see that in the Message Center. And you can even organize your users or staff into specific departments. Now, today's presentation is going to be pretty high level. We're going to be focused in on the types of messaging that are useful to these different departments. But if you'd like a more in-depth or step-by-step reference about how to set up your clerks so they can log in and organize them into certain departments, if you'd like more examples of the different messages in the Message Center, definitely check out this webinar, our Clerk Management Permissions and Communications webinar. That's available on our support website, and I'll include it in a link in my follow-up email following today's presentation. For our purposes today, we're going to focus on these three types of messages from the Message Center. We've got log entries, which are visible to all users. We've got tasks that are visible to a specific message recipient, and tasks do also require a due date, so that's one that we can kind of set as a reminder for future times. We can also set tasks assigned to specific reservations or a specific invoice. Lots of functionality there. And then, of course, we do have general messages, which are sent again to a specific message recipient right away. There's no due date for that. As soon as you send the message, they would receive it if they're logged into Roomkey. Our next tool in our toolkit are guest services. Now, these are service add-ons or enhancements to a booking. So you can add them at the time of booking when you're making a reservation by clicking on this services button. When you add a service, it will appear here as a line item. There may also be a price for that service. This example here is a parking charge for $15 per day, and that will actually appear as an other charge on the guest booking. So when you send them a confirmation letter, they would see that as other charge, separate from the room and tax charges. Now, the main thing that I wanted to highlight, or the main two types of services that we can work with in Roomkey, are paid or transaction-based services, like a $60 bottle of wine delivered to the room or $15 parking per night charge. Or they could be complimentary services, like a request for feather-free bedding or a request for extra towels in the room. Now, one thing that I would like to mention, at least as part of this, since we're talking about messaging, is messaging to external sources like guests or text messaging. These are external to the Roomkey system, so we actually have integrations that we work with to support these types of messages. Um, I won't be going into detail about these types of messages in today's presentation. We're really focusing on cross-team and internal user communication. But if you want to know more information about communicating with guests using a mobile platform for mobile check-in and check-out, definitely take a look at our mobile check-in and check-out webinar that's available on our support website. This will talk all about pre-arrival emails, paperless registration cards, signatures, upselling, enhancements. We also talk about paperless billing and the ability to auto charge and checkout alongside our partnership with Full Steam Payments. And if you want to know more information about texting between guests, texting with your guests, or texting between departments, definitely take a look at our Engage 360 platform powered by Fetch. We have a great partnership with this Fetch platform that allows you to text message between guests and text message between departments. So once you've looked at those webinars, when you're ready to purchase those integrations, you can contact our inside sales manager. Michael Mitchell can be contacted via email. His contact information is available here. He'll be happy to arrange the setup and training for those external platforms, mobile check-in, checkout, and the Engage 360 powered by Fetch. So getting back to our presentation today, like I said, we're focusing in on these cross-team messaging tools that come standard with every Roomkey database. So we'll be focusing in on Roomkey Notes, Message Center, and Guest Services. Now let's take a look at our first category or our first type of handoff. These are between front desk and, front desk staff. So some of the types of messaging that we can do between staff members at the front desk. We'll see that a lot of these messaging tools are triggered by the front desk themselves. First question that we often get is, how do you add a note? We've got two types of notes that we can add and a couple of different ways that we can add them. So the first one that we're going to look at here is how to attach a reservation note. We'll see how that notes can be attached during the booking process and how you can kind of edit notes on the fly as well. So when you're making a reservation, here in the new reservation screen, you'll click the guest info tab, and then down at the bottom left corner, this is where you have fields for your guest note and your reservation note. Just a reminder, the guest note is attached to this guest profile, whereas the reservation note is attached to this one-time reservation. When you click OK and complete the reservation, you'll see both the guest note and the reservation note appear here on the reservation on the bottom right-hand corner. Now you can always tell that if there's a reservation note because you'll have this little note icon next to the reservation. A quick way to edit these notes is to double click in this space and you can quickly add notes or add additional notes. For this guest, I'm going to say that there's a late arrival with an estimated time or ETA of 2 a.m. I'll click post and you'll note that it records the time and date stamp and my user ID. So you'll always know who added the note and when. So that was specific to notes that are added at the time of booking or a reservation note. Now I want to show you a shortcut of how you can add those guest notes. Once a reservation is already made, we can, of course, edit the change the reservation and add in those notes again. But if you want a quick way to add or attach a new guest note, this video is going to show us how to do that. Starting here from the reservation, like I said, if you want to add a guest note, you're going to go to the Operations menu, select Guest Profile, or you can simply click F7 on your keyboard, and that'll bring up the guest profile. And down here in the bottom right corner, you're going to click View Guest Notes. You can put in your new note. Here we're going to say that the guest prefers quiet rooms. And when I click Post, that's going to now save that note to this guest profile. So when I exit the guest profile module, I will now see that note is automatically attached to this reservation. And of course, because that is a guest note, each and every time that guest returns to the property, that guest note is automatically going to populate in each new reservation for me. So the next thing that you might be asking is, how do you print guest notes or reservation notes? We've got one simple report that'll allow you to do that. It's the arrival guest notes. This can be printed per arrival date. It is a report that it's found in the Reports menu under the Reservation section, and it's called Print Guest Notes. You'll have the option to print this by arrival date or for all of your in-house guests. Now I'm just going to pull up a demo database here, and I want to show you a shortcut that makes it really easy to pull up this type of report. I'm going to click and hold the Alt key on my keyboard, click the letter E, E, and P, and that's going to bring up that report for me. I can choose by arrival date or for in-house guests. I'm going to click B to do by arrival date. That's today's date there. I'll go ahead and click OK. And that pulls up all of my notes for all of my arrivals today. You'll notice that for each reservation or each arrival, I can see if there's any guest notes or reservation notes. So really helpful to print those notes if you want to have a paper copy at the front desk, communicate between front desk users or front desk staff. Another common question that we get is, how do you manage VIP guests? Here we've got a couple of videos that'll demonstrate these processes. The first one that we're going to look at is, how do you actually designate a VIP guest? How do you turn a regular guest into a VIP? So you can do so by selecting the reservation. You can click Change Res or double click on the reservation. That's going to open up the reservation edit screen, and you'll go to the Guest Info tab. Over here, you'll see a checkbox for VIP where you can add a note about their VIP status. Now, another way that you can do that as well is directly from the guest profile. So again, you can select F7 on your keyboard to pull up that profile, click Edit Guest, and here we have the ability to mark the guest as a VIP, and we can also add in a note as to their VIP status. So we'll say that this is the CFO of the consulting group, and click OK. Once a guest is marked as a VIP, their reservation will be appearing here, highlighted in green. So, as you mark guests as VIPs, you might want to make sure that you have a VIP report. Now, Roomkey does not have any VIP reports built into it, but we do have custom reports, and we've got a really great webinar available on our support website, all about reports that includes how to build these custom reports. We also have step-by-step articles, including one that will teach you how to make a VIP report. So VIP reports can be customized to suit your business. The example that we have built and the example that is shown in this video is a VIP arrivals report. So here I'm going to access the report from the reporting menu. I'm going to go down to custom reports, and I've stored it here in the general section. I've just called it VIP arrivals. Now to generate this report, I'll select the arrival date I'm looking at. Let's use today's date and click OK. And that's now going to show me my report, a full list of all of my VIPs arriving today. And it'll also include that VIP description and the status of the reservation. So I know if they're due in as a reservation or if they're already checked in in-house. So like I mentioned, another type of special status is a DNR status, and that's a profile status here. So a common question that we do get with regards to DNR or do not rent guest profiles is how do you manage these types of guests? They're not going to have reservations because if you remember, we cannot make a booking for a guest in DNR or do not rent status. So here I'm going to show you how you can make a DNR or do not rent guest profile. Got a short little video that'll show us that. You're going to go directly to the guest profile module in the operations menu or select F7 on the keyboard and click new guest. In the main guest information, you'll add as much detail as you need, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll select the Do Not Rent checkbox. You can also click the Y button to add in any notes about this Do Not Rent status and click the Save button. Once you've created a Do Not Rent profile, it'll appear here in red, and when you try to create a new reservation, you'll receive this warning message. And again, you cannot work around that message. That will prevent you from making a Do Not Rent profile. Another way that you might encounter these is when you're making a reservation and you search for an existing profile. Here I've got that profile highlighted in red, and when I try to select it and attach it to this reservation, again, I'm receiving that warning message telling me I cannot interact or I cannot make a reservation for that guest. Um, so do not rent guests hopefully are few and far between, but if you do have a few profiles with that designation, you may want to print a DNR report or do not rent report. We can do that directly from the guest profile module as well. I've got a little video here that'll show you how to do that. So here in Roomkey, again, you'll go back to the guest profile module or F7 on your keyboard. You'll click the reports menu and select do not rent list. This will bring up a preview of the report. This report will show the guest name, when they were placed on the list, and who placed them there, and any notes associated with that status. You have the option to print that report. You can have that handy at the front desk, so all team members are aware of any guests that are on the do not rent list. Okay. Next thing we're going to take a look at, we're going to shift gears a little bit and we'll be talking about some logbook. An old school method of passing along information between front desk shifts is to record items in a logbook. If you are looking to make this paperless, we do have a solution that you can use that is built into the messaging center, and that's called log entries. So I'm actually going to pull up my demo database again, and I'm going to show you how you can make a log entry. There we go. So you can access the Message Center from the Operations menu, and you can click Message Center. It usually appears down here at the very bottom. Now, if you'd like to use shortcuts, like I've shown already, you can use your Alt key on the keyboard. So you'll just click and hold Alt. You're going to click, oops, sorry, Alt O and then E. Oh, sorry. Let's try that again. Alt O and E. There we go. So when you click Alt O E, that's going to bring up your message center here. And the first thing that we see are our log entries. So like I mentioned earlier, log entries are visible to all users. So when you create a log entry, all users will be able to see this and access this in the message center. Here I can see that yesterday's log is already added in. And if I want to add a new log for today, I'm going to click New Entry. I'm going to follow the naming convention I have here. This is the subject of the log. So I'm going to put that into the subject line for today's date, which is 2026, January 21. Great. And if I'm, let's say I'm the AM shift, I might start out my message with the AM shift, and I might say, if there's any log entries that I want to add as part of my daily log or end of shift log here. So I might say um, two lost and found items recorded by housekeeping. Great. So just little notes here. You might also want to note if there's any, maybe if a guest complaint that you were able to resolve or any log items that you just want to pass on to the next shift. Now, because these are seen by all users, I don't have to do anything else. I can simply click send, and that will now add a new log entry for today's date. And I can actually double click on this log entry, and I would be able to see that log from my AM shift. If I'm now a PM shift and I want to add to this log, I can add a comment, and I can start with my PM shift. Oops. PM shift, there we go. And I can log any information. So I might say all departures checked out on time. Right. Click send. And you'll see that instead of creating a new log, it actually adds a comment to that existing log entry. So if anyone needed to review the logs for this date, they would be able to see all subsequent information. The other neat thing about these logs is you can actually see who's read this information. So you can see who has caught up with all of this logged information. When you click who's read, that's going to show a list of all of your users. Now, this is a demo database, so I don't actually have any other users, but you would see them listed here with the last time that they accessed that log recorded. So lots of detail there with our message center for our log entries. It can be a very versatile way of making your logbook paperless and moving away from that paper logbook at the front desk. Now, another type of question that we often get is if you can send a message to yourself. So if you want to send maybe a reminder to yourself, we do have that functionality. Again, in the message center, we're going to create a task. Now, when you're sending a message to yourself, you might want to send a due date with that. So that's why it's really great to create a task and just assign it to your My Tasks listing. So I'm going to bring up my demo database and show you how to do this now. Now I'm going to start from the message center. And again, I'm going to click New Entry in the bottom left-hand corner. This time I'm going to create a task. So I'm going to select Create as Task. And I want to add this to my task listing. So over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Add to my task listing. Now, when you create a task, like I said, it does require a due date. It will automatically default to 24 hours and tomorrow or as a task due date, but you can actually change this due date. So you can make it for today's date. You can specify a time, maybe let's say 12 noon today. And down here is where I can add my subject. Again, this might be a reminder, maybe make sure I cash out early. Great. So just a little reminder there. Of course, if this was to be sent in the future, maybe next week, you can also set reminders, up to 2 reminders for this task as well. But when you're ready to send your message, you just go ahead and click send. Confirm that you want to include yourself on this task. And once you've sent a message, you will see that here in the sent items. So there's my message to myself, a reminder to cash out early. If I double click on that message, that'll bring up my message itself. Any sort of task does require you to mark it as complete. So here I can mark this task as complete once I complete my cash out at noon today. Of course, um, let me just go back here, back to our presentation here. Great. So lots of functionality available there to be able to send messages to yourself, making sure that you're creating a task and adding it to My Task listings. Another thing that you might be wondering is if you can set an alert or flag a reservation. If you're using the term alert, you might be used to alert features in Opera. Here in Roomkey, we can utilize that task feature again, and specifically, we can set a task on a reservation. So I have a video here that's going to show us how to do that. When you're creating a reservation, you'll go through the regular steps to book the reservation, and then you'll come over here to the Tasks tab. You'll click New Task, and that's going to bring up your message center. You'll notice here that it automatically defaults to the arrival date for the reservation, and you can add your subject information here. So this guest is going to receive complimentary parking. And again, you can assign it to yourself or any of those recipients there. You can even set reminders if you'd like. When you're ready, you can click the Send button and click Yes if you are sending that to yourself or including yourself on that list of recipients. Any task associated with a reservation will appear here on the reservation itself within the Tasks tab. So when that task is due, when I'm logged into Roomkey, I'll receive that little message notification letting me know that I have a message waiting for me, and I'll be able to interact with that task associated with that specific reservation. So I know exactly what reservation I need to give complimentary parking. So we've been mostly talking about front desk handoffs between front desk agents. Now let's see how the front desk can also communicate with other departments. First thing we often get asked is if you can send a message to other departments or maybe a email blast or message blast to all staff. We can definitely do this, and we've got the option to either do that as a task with a specific date, or we can just send it as a general message right away. I'm going to bring up my message center once again, and when you pull up the message center, you're going to start from New Entry in the bottom left-hand corner. And like I said, you can create this as a task. If you want to set this message to be sent at a specific time, you'll create it as a task. Or if you just want this to be a general message, maybe if there is a be on the lookout or BOLO alert, we might want to send that right away. And over here in the message recipients, this is where we can send it to a specific department. Maybe we can send it to the front desk department, or you can simply send it to all staff so that they are all aware. So that'll select all staff members, all users in your system here. I'm going to make this a BOLO alert, and let's go ahead and add that message here. So there's a suspicious guest on property. We want to let everyone know to be on the lookout and do not approach this guest. We'll go ahead and click Send, and that message will be sent out to all users. So because this is sent right away, all users who are currently logged into Roomkey will have that notification pop up on their screen. When they look at that BOLO alert, of course, because I'm the person who sent that message, I'll be able to see this message here, and I can also review who has read this message so far. So if my front desk or my housekeeping or my sales team members, once they read it, I'll be able to see that they've read that information here as well. So, a couple of great examples there of how to send messages between departments or to all staff. Next thing you might want to look at, we're going to switch gears a little bit away from the message center and talk about guest services. A common question, most basic question we did get is how do you attach a guest service to a reservation? Now we've got a couple of different methods we're going to look at for this process. The first one is how to add a guest service to a reservation, specifically one reservation. We can do that. This video is going to show us two methods that we can use either during the booking process or on an existing reservation. So during the booking process, you're going to make the booking and then you're going to click the Services tab. And here you can see a list of guest services that are available. You'll select each one that's needed and move it over to the left-hand side. Now, as I mentioned, we have two types of guest services. If they have a price, that'll appear here in the price column and the total will appear down at the bottom. When you're ready, you can now click OK and save that guest service to the reservation. Another method you can use is to select a reservation, right-click, and select Update Guest Services. Here, this gives you a shortcut to that services section where you can quickly add in a service without having to edit or open up the full reservation. So two different methods there, depending on if you're in the midst of booking a reservation or if you already have an existing reservation, you can right-click and add guest services. Now, another common question or another method that you can use if you're working with groups and you want to add guest services to group reservations, we can actually do that directly from the groups module. This video is going to show us how to do that starting from the groups module itself. Oh, there we go. So we're going to open up the groups module. It's found here in the operations menu. You'll select the group that you want to add the services to. So I'm just going to double click on this ABC Consultants group. I'm going to jump ahead to step number 4, guest services. This is where I can select my service. Let's have parking, and I can even adjust the pricing here. So maybe because this is a group block, I'm going to give them a special price of $12 per night and click post. Now, when it comes to the rooming list, this is where I'll see a list of all those reservations. And to ensure that they have a guest service, I'm going to go to this G-Serve column and make sure that there's a check mark in each one of these guests that's going to be using that parking guest service and click post. Once I do that, I can close out the group wizard. And I'm just going to jump ahead to the reservation screen here. I'm going to pull up one of those reservations for the group. If I right click, select Update Guest Services, this is where I'll see that that guest service is automatically added and at the special price that we set up for the group in the Groups module. So two really quick ways to add guest services to a reservation, depending on if it's an individual reservation during booking or after booking, or if it's part of a group block of reservations. Next thing you might be wondering is how do you print guest service reports? If you needed to pass these reports off to different departments or have this recorded for billing purposes, we have a really simple report found in the reports menu within the services guest services section. It's called Guest Services Daily. This will allow you to print a list of all of the guest services per date. So this is just one single date for January 20th, that was yesterday, or you could do it for a range of dates. So if you wanted to see all the guest services for next week, you can do a range of dates from Monday to Friday, let's say. A variation of this report is the ability to print this report for just one type of guest service. So instead of seeing all of the guest services on one day, if you just want to see the guests who are requesting maybe feather-free bedding, here I've got a guest that arrived yesterday and they have a feather allergy, so they needed feather-free bedding. I use the same report found in the guest services section called Guest Services Daily, but this time I used a feature on that report called the service field to specify this one specific service. I'm just going to pull up Roomkey here and show you where to find that. So again, this is going to be the reports menu. So I'm going to use my shortcut keys, Alt E, G, G, and that's going to pull up my guest services daily report. Before the report generates, this is where I can use my service field and I can select the specific service for feather free and click OK. Of course, if there were any guests receiving feather-free services for today, we would see that report, but that was actually a guest for yesterday, so I should have pulled yesterday's date. But if there's no guests requiring feather-free services, you'll receive that warning message telling you that there's no items to report. Otherwise, you would generate a report similar to this with that list of guests. Now let's switch gears a little bit and take a look at some messaging feature that relates to our housekeeping department. Now, for housekeeping, we do have a very in-depth housekeeping webinar that goes through all of the processes for and operations for housekeeping, including how to update room status from dirty to clean and inspected, how to print housekeeping reports and things like that. For our purposes today, we're going to look at specific messaging that the housekeepers might want to record with regards to guest rooms. And specifically, the most popular question we get is how do you record a D&D room or do not disturb? So if you've got a guest staying multiple nights, but they have a D&D marker on their doorknob, they don't want to be disturbed during the regular housekeeping operations, we want a way to record that in our housekeeping module so that it appears on our reports. And what I'm going to recommend is that you use the guest room notes feature inside the housekeeping module. So I've got a little video here that's going to show you how to do that. We're going to open up the housekeeping module from the operations menu or click F9 on your keyboard. And using the filter room number field, I'm going to filter and look at room 103 directly. And down here at the bottom, this is where I have my notes feature. So I can see that this guest had a D&D on their room for yesterday. And I also want to record that that is now added for today as well. When you click post, you can now click print and you can see a preview of what that housekeeping report will look like with that guest room note. So that note is attached to room 103, regardless of the guest that is checked in-house. So as the days roll over, that note remains on that room number until I remove it from that note section in my housekeeping module. That makes it really handy to track items like do not disturb or D&D room records, especially if you have any policies at the property where D&D has to be, or or housekeepers need to enter the room after a certain amount of days, regardless of D&D status. Another type of messaging that we can look at is messaging for sales and group billing. These are often messages that might be left by a sales manager or group coordinator on site. Number one question we get with regards to group sales and corporate sales is how do you tell the front desk about billing instructions? Now we've got two types of scenarios that we can look at. We can have billing instructions from the sales team to the front desk with regards to corporate bookings or with regards to group blocks. I'm going to take a look at this first one here. This is how to attach notes to a corporate account so that they appear on a corporate reservation automatically. So when you're creating a corporate account here in the corporate module, I'm going to use ABC Consultants as an example. Down here in the bottom left corner, you'll have an attach note field. This is where you can add any booking or billing instructions for guests that are booked as part of this corporate group or corporate account. You'll click post, and now each and every time you create a new reservation for this corporate guest, let me just make sure I'm attaching the ABC Consultants group. I'm going to book this room here. And when I get to the guest info tab, you'll see that it automatically pulls through that note from the attach note field on the account. So I know that these guests have direct billing for room and tax. So that's really useful for corporate accounts or those corporate bookings. Now let's take a look at the same functionality that is applicable to group blocks. So here in the group wizard, when you're setting up a group, you'll have this attach note field available on the general tab. You'll add your note about any booking or billing instructions and click post. Now, when a front desk agent creates a new reservation as part of that group, let me just make sure I'm selecting the arrival date here. Perfect. And the client type is going to be group. It's going to pull up my consultants meeting. I'm going to go ahead and book a room within the block. And when I get to the guest info tab, again, it's going to pull through that note automatically for me. So I don't have to guess or try and search for that information outside of Roomkey. It's automatically going to pull through onto each and every group reservation within that block. Now, speaking about groups, if you don't need to record guest reservations, but instead, if you just want to record some reference information about a group, we've got a neat tool that's available in the groups module as well. It's the add notes or the notes tab within a group block. Now, these are reference notes only. They do not appear on any reservations. They do not appear on any printed or guest-facing documentation. They're for internal secure reference only. So here I have that group again here in the group wizard. That's ABC Consulting's meeting. I'm going to go directly to the Notes tab, step number 8, and I'll click the Insert button. This is where I can add any notes about this group, maybe something that I want to communicate to my other sales team members about approving or pending approval for any decreases or increases to the block. The nice thing with these reference notes is that it does show that time and date stamp and it records my clerk ID. So you know exactly when I added that note and who added it. So you can create a notes log there for reference purposes on a specific group. Now, jumping over to our final department, a department that is sometimes forgotten about, but are still incredibly important to everyday operations at a property, is the accounting department. Now, we have some note features that are available to help support coordination between accounting team members or accountants within that department. And one of those questions that we do get is, how do you store reference notes on an account? So similar to storing reference notes on a group, of course, accountants could add notes to a group just like we saw with the sales in that previous example there. But this feature is also available in the City Ledger. So because accountants are typically looking at billing information, they're very focused on managing accounts. And if you do offer any direct billing, your accountant team is going to be working in that City Ledger module quite a lot. So we have the ability to store reference notes. Again, these notes do not print on any guest or client-facing documentation. They are for internal reference only. We do have the ability to add notes to both a City Ledger account or a specific invoice within that account. So this video is going to show you how to do that. We're going to go to the City Ledger module from the Operations menu or click F8 on your keyboard. Let me just adjust this here, and I'm going to select a specific account. I'm just going to double click on that account, and I have a Notes tab here. So I can see that I already have some notes logged from previous dealings with this organization. If I wanted to add a new note, I just click the New button, and I can add those details there. Now, if you want to add a specific note to a specific invoice, you'll click the Invoices tab first, select the invoice. Let me just double click on this invoice here, and you'll have a Notes tab available directly on the invoice as well. So I'm going to add a note here about this client agreed to provide payment for this invoice sometime this week. So I'm just waiting for a call back about this invoice here. So like I said, that's an internal reference. I can track a log of any activity or any interactions I have with that invoice. The next thing you might be wondering is if you can send a message or an alert or a reminder about a specific invoice. And of course, the answer is yes. This time, we're going to use that same invoice, but instead of just logging a note, we're actually going to set a task for that invoice as a reminder to make sure that that is paid up by the end of this week. So in this video, again, we're starting with that invoice here. We just added that note, but if I want to set a reminder, I'm going to click the Tasks button, click New Task, and that's going to use my message center here. Makes it really easy to automatically attach it to that invoice for me, and I can add my subject information about that payment deadline. I want to make sure that this is paid by the end of the day on Friday, so I can set my due date there as part of the task itself. Lastly, I want to make sure I'm sending this to a specific recipient. In this case, I want to make sure that it's part of the accounting department, and I'm also going to add it to my task listing just so that I have a reminder as well, and I'll click Send. So now that task is set to be sent automatically as a reminder on the 23rd about that billing. So tons of information there. We gone over a lot of details, took a look at all of the tools in our messaging toolkit, and then we looked at how to apply those tools in specific scenarios as it relates to front desk handoffs, housekeeping updates, sales and group building, and of course, accounting coordination. I'm just going to open up the floor to see if we have any outstanding questions here. I think we've got a couple of messages, perhaps. Let me just take a look. So, let's see here. We've got some messages going on in the chat. Just going to get caught up on those. Okay, so a great question from Betsy, just asking if log entries and tasks can be deleted. Um, Log entries and tasks are not deleted. You can have your tasks or messages automatically drop off after a certain date, or essentially they archive. So let me show you where that setting is. Now this is specific to tasks. It will not apply to log entries. Let's see here. Here in Room Key, you'll go to System Configuration and the Property module. Once the Property module opens up on screen, you'll go to your Preferences and click Modify. And then down here, you have the ability to delete old tasks or messages. If this is marked check with a check mark, you then have the option to delete this after 60 days, 45 days, or 30 days. That'll automatically delete those old tasks or messages that are already completed. So go ahead and set those up. If you don't want to delete anything, if you don't want anything to be deleted ever, you can just remove that check mark from Delete Old Tasks and Messages and click Post to save those changes for your database. Mike had a question, has a couple of questions here. Does the all staff departments or all staff or departments only go to Roomkey, or can it be linked with other programs? So when you're looking at your departments, they are unique to Roomkey's system. They do not link with any third-party platforms like Fetch or anything like that. If you do want to set up if you do have a third-party platform like our Engage 360 platform with Fetch, you can set up departments on that platform directly. That would be outside of Roomkey. And then Mike also has a question about if there's a report that you can print for your food and beverage team showing that these guests are able to charge to rooms. Um, it wouldn't specify if they are able to charge or not, but what you might find useful from our property dashboard, let me just pull this up here. So from the property dashboard, I'm just going to use the shortcut key F1 on my keyboard. That's going to bring up my property dashboard report. What you can do is maybe take a look at your printing a list of your stayovers or your arrivals for the day. That will show any guests that are in-house or due to arrive today. That will obviously or hopefully have some sort of credit on file so that they can charge food and beverage items directly to their room. To print those reports, any items that have this blue drop-down arrow, you would just give that a click, and that's going to show a preview of the report with the option to print down here at the bottom. Um, Another report that you might use is available from the reports menu. In the audit section, you could select daily balances for in-house guests. If you're concerned if the guest has credit on their account or not, this report, daily balances for in-house guests for today's date, is going to indicate if they have any balances available on their account there. So that would show up on this screen as well. And this is just showing your in-house guests. So if you do have arrivals for today, they would not show up on this report until they're actually checked in. So a couple of options there as well. Great. And now I've got another note or another message from Annabelle. She is referencing the guest room notes. She's stating that the tricky part that she's found is that the system does not automatically delete notes for a specific room after guest checks out. That's correct. So when we're talking about guest notes that are attached to a specific guest room, let me just pull that up again here. This is part of our housekeeping module, so I'm just going to click F9 on my keyboard to pull up the housekeeping module. You're exactly right. Any of these notes, I think I put it on room 103 here. This note for D&D status, even after this guest has checked out, this note will remain on this room number. And the reason for that is because it's actually attached to the specific room number, regardless of the occupancy status. So even after the guest checks out, that note will remain. D&D status is a great way to track this, is a good example of notes that you might want to track here, just because you want to track that day over day. And if there are any issues, you can always record those details there. But if you do want to delete a D or any notes, you'll just come down here to the notes section, click backspace, click the post button, and that will remove the note from that guest room. So when you click print or print any of your housekeeping reports, you no longer have a note associated with that room specifically. Okay. So I think I was able to answer all those questions in chat. I'm just going to double check our Q&A as well. Joining me today, I do have another member of our training department, and she has reminded me about a couple of items that might also be pointed out. One thing that we talked about going back all the way back to guest notes here, and just show my in-house guest list. Anytime you have reservations. If your guest has stayed with you before, we worked with our VIP guest here. Rosamond just wanted me to remind you that in addition to seeing a VIP status or anything like that, if the guest is a returning guest or a repeat guest, you'll see this little repeat symbol next to the guest itself. If you'd like to see more information or if you want a shortcut to the guest profile module, instead of clicking F7 on your keyboard, you can double click on this repeat icon or this empty space here in the repeat column, and that will automatically bring up the guest profile where you can then view guest notes or you can edit the guest profile information. Thanks. Um, I'm just going to leave the floor open a little bit. If anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and click that Q&A button. I know that we've gone about 2 minutes over, but I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask any outstanding questions there. We had a lot of good ones, actually. So thank you so much. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's meeting. I really appreciate all of your kind messages there as well in the chat. I'm really excited to be offering some more webinar presentations throughout the 2026 year. So stay tuned, and I hope you have a wonderful day.